Besties, this till today is still one of the scariest transformations I've ever seen in my life. To go from this fine, young, rich, millions of followers, you know what I'm saying? You could start any business you want. You could do whatever you want. You are known around the world. Into this in a matter of years? Baby, this ain't just true.
Bothering me is that being a celebrity sometimes comes with, like, everybody wants to be successful in a celebrity and stuff like that, but it comes with, bullshit sometimes, and, that's the only thing that I hate about it.
So Will Smith allegedly admitted to being intimate with Bryshere Gray, the young actor he was supposedly mentoring. And according to someone who was in the room when Will confessed this, when Bryshere asked him to stop, Will said he finished the act first and then stopped. That's not consent. That's something else entirely. And the person making these claims isn't some random internet troll. It's Will's former best friend of 40 years who says he has legal paperwork to back all of this up. But before we get into the receipts, you need to understand how a promising young Hollywood star ended up completely destroyed. Because honestly, this might be one of the most disturbing falls from grace I've ever seen.
Bryshere Gray. So long story short, when I'm in Chicago, this guy's acting erratic. Crazy. He's getting stopped by the cops. There's malpractice involved. There's mental illness involved. There's drug use involved. And I'm really trying to see what happened to this guy. And one day he said, you know what happened. You know that Will R-worded me, or however y'all kind of say it on YouTube. You know that Diddy assaulted me. And you know Charlie Mack made me suck his private part.
If you remember Bryshere Gray from Empire, you remember someone who had absolutely everything going for him. Young, talented, good-looking, millions of followers, the kind of guy who could have started any business he wanted, landed any role he wanted, built whatever future he could imagine. He was being praised by major Hollywood players, getting called one of the most promising young actors in the industry, and he had heavyweight names like Will Smith publicly talking about mentoring him and taking his career to A-list levels. This wasn't some struggling actor hoping for a break. This was someone who'd already made it and was being positioned for even bigger things. And then something happened. Something that took him from all of that, from the fame and the money and the potential and the millions of fans, to where he is now.
He's with my man Charlie Mack. So Charlie was with me every step of the way. First out the limo. So Charlie has been with me, 30 years coming up in the business. So, he's surrounded by a whole lot of strength. He's surrounded by a whole lot of love. And all he has to do is add discipline.
I'm not going to tell you to go look at his Twitter page because, for the sake of your eyes, please don't ever go near it. But the transformation is genuinely one of the scariest things I've ever witnessed in terms of a public figure's decline. We're talking about a complete and total destruction of a human being. And the people now coming forward are saying it wasn't just drugs, it wasn't just bad choices, it was something that was done to him by people he trusted. And the allegations that are surfacing right now connect directly to everything we've been hearing about powerful men in Hollywood and those infamous parties. So here's how it allegedly started.
Will admitted to me that he had sex with Bryshere Gray, but it was consensual, right? So I'm like, okay, so now it's starting to make sense, because I would have never believed that the way this guy's acting, something had to happen. So now, Will told me, and this is going to be in paperwork and everything, right? So when Will told me that he did have intercourse with Bryshere, he said Bryshere did ask him to stop. Will said he finished, completed the act, then stopped. Right then and there, when a person say stop, that means stop. Period.
Will Smith's longtime friend and manager Charlie Mack was handling Bryshere when he was coming up in the industry. Charlie introduced Bryshere to Will, and Will apparently took an immediate interest in the young actor. We're talking about a mentorship situation that on the surface looked like exactly what every aspiring entertainer dreams about, getting taken under the wing of one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. According to Brother Bilal, who was Will's close friend for over 40 years and is now speaking out about everything, Will actually came to his apartment with Charlie Mack to discuss Bryshere. They told him about this new guy Will was mentoring, how he was about to get cast on a major show, how he was supposedly going to star in the reboot of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that, simply for reporting misconduct or safety threats at work, is not okay. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there who have been afraid to speak up, and I understand. And if that's you, I see you. And that's pretty much it.
Will asked Bilal to go to Chicago and help look after Bryshere while he was working on Empire. And when Bilal hesitated because money was tight, Will allegedly promised to make sure he got double what was in his bank account over the course of time. So Bilal went to Chicago to assist Bryshere during filming. And at first, everything seemed normal, just a young actor working hard, trying to make it, with a support system around him that included some of the most powerful people in entertainment. But then out of nowhere, Bryshere started acting completely different, erratic, restless. He went from being a professional, trying to build his career, to partying nonstop, doing drugs, and engaging in increasingly destructive behavior. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with him, until one day, Bryshere told Bilal something that changed everything.
Charlie Mack and Will gets a lawyer for Bryshere, and they try to get me under NDA. I tell Will, I'm not signing, I don't even have an NDA with you. How am I getting an NDA with him? You understand what I'm saying? So I hire a lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. When I hire the lawyer, he comes back and say, listen, this is the best I can do. He said, I'm going to have y'all do a mutual NDA, meaning that Bryshere can't tell people that you know that Will and Diddy assaulted him. And I want to say the R word, but I know we're on YouTube. Then you can't say nothing about him. So I said, okay, well, as long as he stopped telling people that I know what Will and Diddy did to him. You understand what I'm saying? Period. That was the problem. So there's legal paperwork, and it's all going to be, and you got to follow this case.
According to Bilal, he was in Chicago trying to figure out what was happening to this young man who was spiraling out of control. Bryshere was getting stopped by cops. There were male involved, mental illness, use, and Bilal genuinely didn't understand how someone with so much potential could be destroying himself so completely. And then, during one conversation, while Bilal was trying to talk him down, Bryshere suddenly blurted it out. He allegedly said that Will assaulted him, that Diddy assaulted him, that Charlie Mack made him perform inappropriate acts. This wasn't some vague accusation or hint. According to Bilal, this was a full admission, with Bryshere curled up in the corner, sweating, crying so hard that blood was coming from his nose. He kept saying, "Please don't tell them. Please don't tell them." Like he was terrified of what would happen if these powerful men found out he'd talked.
He's out there allegedly with male prostitutes. He's pissing in the trailer. He's acting psychotic, right?
The same thing he's doing now.
Beyond that. But this is why a show is going on. I pulled him to the side. I said, listen, I'm here to help you and so forth and so on. So he was like, all right, I feel that. He said, everybody on the set know you. Everybody seem like they love you. Okay. I want to love you because everybody else love you. I said, if that's what you want to do, then do it. But he kept acting up. And then one day I said, what the F is wrong with you? And he was like, you know. He said, you know Will me. You know Diddy made me suck his. You know what's going on. You know Charlie made me suck. And I said, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea. So he crying, no blood is coming from his nose. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I'm like, yo, listen. So I grabbed my hug. I said, listen, I don't know. I didn't know what happened.
Bryshere apparently thought Bilal already knew and was just covering for them. It was only when he saw Bilal's genuine shock that he realized his friend had no idea what had been happening behind closed doors. According to Bryshere, Will and Diddy gave him money after what happened and sent him on his way, but something in him was broken after that. Something that never came back. And here's where it gets even more disturbing, because Bilal says Will actually admitted to part of this. According to Brother Bilal, Will Smith privately admitted to being intimate with Bryshere Gray. Will allegedly claimed it was consensual, but here's the thing that Bilal says makes it assault. When Will told him about what happened, he said that Bryshere asked him to stop during the act, and Will admitted that he finished first before stopping. Bilal's response to that is pretty straightforward. When someone says stop, that means stop, period. The moment you don't stop is the moment it becomes something else entirely. And it wasn't just a one-time thing according to these allegations. The claims are that Will used the guise of mentorship and guidance to lure young actors and entertainers who wanted to make it in the industry.
Will, and once again, they was willing to give me the money, but what they wanted me to do, I wasn't going to do that for the money. And I knew that alleged things have happened with younger kids. I knew that there were some egregious acts from on a sexual nature done to people. That money, I called it the devil money. If I would have took that money, right, that money would have done me no good. You understand what I'm saying? That money could have been my downfall. That's why I didn't take that money. People are like, oh, he trying to get money. Okay, well, if I'm trying to get money, why didn't I take that money?
Bryshere accepted what he thought was legitimate career help, but it allegedly didn't take long for him to realize this wasn't just about getting roles and working on his craft. He was being invited to parties. The Diddy kind of parties, if you catch my meaning. And anytime Bryshere would reportedly ask why he had to participate in any of that, Will would allegedly tell him he needed to put in the work and pay his dues before he could have a seat at the table. So according to these claims, Bryshere eventually started catching feelings for Will because that's what happens when someone that powerful pays attention to you and makes you feel special. This allegedly went on for years, with Bryshere genuinely believing he had someone who would protect him and be there for him. But the most painful part of all of this, according to Bryshere, is what happened when he finally tried to get out and do something for himself. Because once he was no longer useful, the Smiths allegedly made sure he would never work in Hollywood again.
So, but normally I have to go to Will's house if there's a meeting. So Will comes to my apartment allegedly, and Charlie, Mac, the rat, the informant, come to my apartment. So they was like, hey, B, look, man, we got this new guy. Will is mentoring. His name is Bryshere Gray. Everybody call him Yaz. He's about to get cast on this major show. I'm like, okay, what would you want? I'm thinking they coming to get product. Bryshere was supposed to allegedly star in the reboot of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I said, look, Will, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to go to Chicago and hold this guy down. I remember like it was yesterday. I turned the computer around. I said, Will, that's what's in my bank account right now, right? Will started laughing, right? And said, I'm gonna make sure you get double that over the course of time. That's my guarantee. So I'm like, jeez. I said, okay.
When Bryshere started acting out and his behavior became erratic enough to potentially affect Will's brand, that's when he was allegedly discarded completely. And not just discarded, but actively blacklisted. According to these allegations, Will and Jada made sure that no one in the industry would touch Bryshere with a 10-foot pole. Every door that had been open to him suddenly slammed shut. Every opportunity dried up. Every connection he'd made through them became worthless because anyone who wanted to stay in the Smiths' good graces knew better than to help someone they'd cut off. This is allegedly why Bryshere's career went from promising Hollywood actor to where he is now. It wasn't just personal destruction from trauma. It was professional destruction from two of the most powerful people in entertainment, making sure he could never recover. And now that he has nothing left to lose, he's apparently considering filing a $50 million lawsuit against Will Smith. The timing of all this is significant because it comes on the heels of another lawsuit Will is facing. His former violinist, Brian Scott Joseph, filed suit accusing Will of harassment during his 2025 tour. According to that lawsuit, Will allegedly spent personal time with Brian and kept telling him they had a special connection that wasn't there with anyone else. Brian claims Will's behavior became increasingly creepy as their relationship grew closer. Then, in March 2025, Brian's bag containing his hotel room key went missing for several hours. When he returned to his room later that night, he allegedly found that someone had entered without permission and left behind belongings including wipes, a bottle of HIV medication with someone else's name on it, and a note that read something along the lines of, "I'll be back, just us." Brian took this as a warning that an unknown individual planned to return and engage in inappropriate acts, and when he reported this to Will's team, he claims he was shamed for it and fired. That's why he filed the lawsuit. But the thing that really gives Bryshere's story weight is the legal documentation Bilal says exists. According to Bilal, after Bryshere's breakdown and confession, Will and Charlie Mack got a lawyer for Bryshere and tried to get Bilal to sign an NDA. Bilal says he refused, pointing out that he didn't even have an NDA with Will himself. So why would he sign one about this situation? When Bilal hired his own lawyer, they eventually came back with what was called a mutual NDA, meaning Bryshere couldn't tell people that Bilal knew about what Will and Diddy allegedly did to him, and Bilal couldn't say anything about Bryshere. Bilal says all of this legal paperwork exists and will be coming out as the case develops. And here's the thing that makes Bilal's testimony harder to dismiss. This man was Will Smith's close friend for 40 years. He's not some random person looking for attention or money. In fact, he claims Will's team offered him money to stay quiet, and he refused it, calling it devil money and saying taking it would have been his downfall. He says he knew about alleged things happening with younger people, knew about egregious acts of an inappropriate nature done to people, and couldn't in good conscience take payment to cover that up. Bilal has been going hard on the Smiths for a while now. He went on Tasha K's platform and dragged Jada so thoroughly that she allegedly threatened to file a lawsuit against him. But he stood his ground, saying if she was so sure he was lying, she should go ahead and file and see what comes out in discovery. He's also made other claims about things he allegedly witnessed at the Smith household that I can't even fully get into here. But let's just say they involve Will and another male celebrity in a very compromising situation. So where does all of this leave us? Bryshere Gray is reportedly considering a $50 million lawsuit against Will Smith. Brother Bilal is claiming he has legal paperwork to support the allegations. Brian Scott Joseph's lawsuit is moving forward, and the Smiths are facing what might be the nastiest start to a year they've ever experienced. Charlie Mack, who's been Will's right-hand man for about 30 years in the business, is directly implicated in these allegations. And according to people who've worked with him, he was supposedly the one facilitating introductions and managing these young men who came into Will's orbit seeking mentorship and guidance. The pattern being alleged here is deeply disturbing. Young men who wanted to make it in Hollywood, who trusted these powerful figures to help them achieve their dreams, allegedly being used and then discarded once they were no longer useful or started becoming liabilities. And the ones who tried to speak up allegedly got silenced through NDAs, blacklisting, or both. What happened to Bryshere Gray is genuinely tragic regardless of how much of these allegations turn out to be provable in court. Here's someone who had everything: legitimate talent, massive platform, industry backing, and he ended up completely destroyed. The transformation from who he was to who he is now isn't something that just happens from making bad choices. Something broke this man, and the people who were supposed to be helping him build his career are now being accused of being the ones who broke him. The legal battles are just beginning. The lawsuits are piling up. And Will Smith, who spent decades building an image as one of the most beloved entertainers in the world, is now facing allegations that paint a picture of something much darker happening behind the scenes. Whatever the truth turns out to be, the fact that multiple people are now coming forward with similar stories, backed by someone who was in Will's inner circle for 4 decades, makes this impossible to dismiss as just a money grab.